Okay, in this last section that I've put, again, several together, they're all talking about sort of fossil evidence and other types of evidence that you can find in looking at fossil and fossil records. So fossils provide a record of evolution. Paleontology is the study of fossils or extinct organisms. Paleontology provides evidence to support evolution. So you would end up saying, like, okay, these organisms had developed from that original one there, and just as the time went on, they started to develop more and more differences from or adapted to the areas that they were in. So another thing, molecular and genetic evidence support fossil and anatomical evidence. So two closely related organisms will have similar DNA sequences. You can see there that below it's showing there's only a few differences from the DNA of a hippopotamus to a humpback whale, both of which are mammals and things like that. So what they end up saying is the longer or the more closely related they are, the fewer differences you're going to end up finding in the genetic information. You have pseudogenes, they're sequences providing evidence of evolution. They're ones like genes that have no function anymore, and they're carried along with the functional DNA. It can be clues to when they had a common ancestor. Hox genes, that's another thing that indicates a very distant common ancestor. It's going to control the development of specific structures, and they're found in many organisms. Protein comparisons or molecular fingerprinting reveals similarities among cell types and of different organisms as well. Scientists from many fields contribute to the understanding of evolution. The basic principle of evolution are used in many scientific fields. So looking at the fossil record now, fossils can form in several ways. There's mineralization occurs when minerals carried by water are deposited around a hard structure. So that's where you get a lot of the bones that will form. A natural cast forms when flowing water removes all of the original tissue, leaving an impression. So that's what you see here. Trace fossils, they're going to record the activity of an organism. So you can see like footprints of an organism there. Amber preserved fossils are organisms that become trapped in the tree resin or sap that hardens after the tree is buried. Preserved remains form when an entire organism becomes encased in material such as ice or other things. This was ancient human that was found in the Alps, and they thought it was a murder, which it may have been, but it was like several thousand years old, and so they had found a basically like a caveman. The specific conditions needed for fossilization, you're going to have only a tiny percentage of living things are going to become fossils, because it's going to you just need the right conditions for it to occur. It's a lot of times only going to be hard tissue that is going to be preserved. One way that they are going to try to figure out how old something is by doing what's known as radiometric dating, as a opposed to relative dating. Relative dating estimates the time during which an organism has lived by looking at the rock layers, seeing how far down in the soil it was. Scientists infer order of which in which the species existed in that case, and with it, you would usually use what's known as an index fossil, which is a fossil that is found during a certain time frame and over a large area. So you'd be able to say, well, we think this layer of rock is this time period because this is what we found in it. We found this index fossil. Radiometric dating uses the decay of unstable isotopes. So isotopes, once again, are atoms of an element that differ in their number of neutrons. So half-life is going to be the amount of time it takes for half of the isotope to decay. So by looking at it, you'd be able to figure out how much of this carbon is in the organism, and this is what it should have been at the time that it was alive, and you'd be able to figure out how old a fossil would be. Now, looking at the geological time scale, the geological time scale is when we have index fossils and things like that, and index fossils can provide the relative age of a rock layer, and it's existed only during specific spans of time and occurred in large geographic areas, like I was saying before. Index fossils include things like fusilids and trilobites. The history of the Earth is represented in the geological timescale, which you see part of it right over there at the side. You have eras last tens to hundreds of millions of years and consists of 2 or more periods. You have 3 eras: the Cenozoic, Mesozoic, and Paleozoic eras. You've got the Cretaceous period, Jurassic period, and Triassic period. And then you've got the Permian period, the Carboniferous period, the Devonian period, the Silurian period, the Ordovician period, and the Cambrian period. Periods last tens of millions of years. Most commonly used units of time on the time scale, and they are associated with the rock systems. Epochs last millions of years, and that is the end of the notes for this chapter and this section.